Has anyone heard of the serenity prayer? Serenity prayer? Okay. Grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Bring it back down to stressful situations, just so that, again, this is all about you and how to give you tactics or strategies that when you leave here, that you can deal with events that you might perceive to be stressful. So as we've been talking about, like yesterday and today, events always happen in our lives, but it's the meaning that we put on them that we'd either perceive to be stressful or not. That will either make us or break us. So what I want you all to do is to find a blank bit of paper in your notebook and write down, have a think about what are the major stresses in your life? What really rocks your boat that you just think, holy, beep, 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 I'm being filmed, but holy mackerel, that's really stressful. That's really stressing me out. Just take a couple of moments just to write down some stressful situations, and then we'll come up with some strategies that are individual for you. All right, does anybody want to share any of their stresses? Wow, okay, so backseat drivers, daughters, kids. So can you see where people were sharing their stresses? Some other people in the room might think, you know what, I don't think that would stress me. So it's all perception. Most of our modern day stresses in life right now are all made up in our heads. Because I would imagine if I spoke to the three of you with children, you would 100% be able to write a massive list of all the things you are blessed by those children and them being in their life, wouldn't you? Yeah. So it's just those little things. So again, it's things happen in our life, events, but it's our perception. It's how we direct our focus in on, you know what? You haven't done the dishes, so my life is going to fall apart. Well, really, is it? It's just the dishes. So it's almost a case of that saying, you've probably heard of it, don't sweat the small stuff. You know, and all of us, Annie and I had a conversation. I had a very stressful trip down to Sydney, and Annie was sharing things that were happening in the lead up to the event. And we thought, you know what, we're quite humble, we're unique, we're individuals, and we're on our individual journey like all of you. And I think the thing is we're conscious of what we were doing when we were in it. We thought, okay, listen to our body, what do I really need? And he was saying, I just need a break. For me in Sydney, being highly tuned to energy now, it just drove me nuts. Whereas back in the old days, Sue, when I was backpacking, I loved the adventure, the intensity of the city. It was so vibrant. But now I just think, oh, these people, the sirens, everything, but it was just my perception. I caught myself in that moment. I thought, okay, Sue, what do I need to do right here, right now for me so that I fill my tank back up so that I can go into the world and do what I had to do in that day. So everyone's unique. Everyone's in their unique position. So I'm just sharing that from an example that Annie touched on that earlier about a conversation that we had, that we're all not perfect. Well, we're perfect in our own way, but we're just dealing with life how we come. So for me, what I do is and we've been talking about it all throughout this weekend, is belly breathing and deep breathing. I really tune into my heart, because if you think about polarities, if you're fearful or you're anxious or you're on this downward spiral loop, the best way to get back up is to have an elevated motion. So you can't feel sad and love at the same time. So if I pop back into my heart, which was the exercise I did with you yesterday, and you focus on your heart or things that you love in your life, beautiful surroundings, children, loved ones, pets, being on a holiday, that nice experience that Annie said about being with her your father and swimming with him, so just saying that again, you instantly went, oh yes, it's just in that moment. And that's the thing I was sharing with somebody a couple of days ago, is I've just I'm a big fun thing, so I have to have fun with it. I'm on my own social experiment. So in that moment, I think, okay, I play the what if game, and I call it the what if up. So if I had a bad day at work and I'm walking along, this was when I was working for corporate down in Melbourne, I would walk and say, oh, this happened, and then that happened, and then the boss did that, and then and my whole life was, not suicidal, but you felt in that moment that how can it get worse? I thought, okay, Sue, play the what if up game, and you might want to note this down. It's a fun exercise. Okay, so what if up? So, and you just keep asking that question, what if up? So, and it's almost gratitude as well. So what if it wasn't such a bad day? Okay, so I'm walking down the street, I have my health. Well, that's one what if up. And the more I was doing this about stacking on top, we talked about layers before, stacking all the positives of your day. I was blessed that I was living in Australia. I was blessed that I had a roof over my head. I was blessed that I could come back and I could cook food from, beautiful food in the fridge. I was blessed that I had a boyfriend at the time. All these blessings, you've got your scales and you're weighing your scales up, and all your stress starts to dissipate. So there would be two things, that I would get in my heart space and breathe from there and widen it out, and then do the what if up game. So there were a couple of things. For you individually, when you look at your stresses, all the ones down on your list, look at the feelings behind that. And then this is part of the what if up game. Think about, can I change it? So again, it's perception. Can I change it? And if you can, yes, how can you change it? What small steps? Using the example of, I don't have children, but if I did, and I'm a clean freak, a bit like Annie, we're quite similar. And that scenario that you said, Jay coming home with his girlfriend, I would really, preparing for an event, I was thinking I really need my space. So that would really, I'd have a struggle with that too. But what are small steps? As Annie clearly did, she had a conversation with Jay, say, hey Jay, I know we're in this space together, can we be a bit more respectful, and you have your space, I've got my space, can we clean up after each other? Small step. Because in the grand scheme of things, it's not like a big issue. It's not going to be earth-shattering. You're not going to die by it. Or what are the big steps? So small steps and big steps, if you can change it. If you can't, no, accept that this is how it is at the moment. Now I learnt this from Dr. Libby. Does anyone know Dr. Libby? Yeah. So this is a beautiful exercise that Dr. Libby shared. And it just helps you in that moment. Another saying that my auntie, and this was really grounding for me when I heard this, and this is one of the things I live by. She said, it's not right, it's not wrong, it just is. It's not right, it's not wrong, it just is. That was my big aha moment. It just is. And by knowing that, you take away all these feelings that are probably old programs. We talked about the past being living out your past or worried about the future. It takes away from all those old feelings and the old programs and looks at the situation, the event in hand, and then you see the truth in that situation rather than layering on all your feelings. That blows it out of proportion. I use the analogy of a baby learning to walk. Like, we've all done this, we've all been babies, and now we're adults. We don't even think about walking, we just do it. Okay, it's lunchtime, here we go, we're going to... But as a baby, they've consciously got to think of it. And they fall down, and they're, with an adult, and they're walking like this, and then they fall down, and then they giggle, and then they do the whole furniture crawl, don't they? They're moving around here with all the furniture. That would be great, because I could go to you, Simone, and then I could hop over here to the next person around, and then they've made the whole circle. But they've fallen down so many times, but they didn't give up. all of you didn't give up. But as adults, we kind of see that and thinking, that's too big for us. But it's not. We're bigger than that. Our essence is bigger than that. And as kids, we all knew that. So it's in that moment tapping into that again.
Why does that change when we become an adult?
Great question. I've asked that so many times. I think it's with society, really, isn't it? Because I don't remember if you remember the slide I put up yesterday about all our thoughts, 60 to 70,000 thoughts that we have in a day. We can only focus on a small amount. And our beliefs, our values and perceptions are governed by our, family, society, peer pressure. We go into a job, we're expected to act a certain way in inverted commas. So unless we're living our true essence and proud of that and allowing everyone else to shine as well, you've just got to rise above all your past limiting beliefs. Yeah. Another scenario that I heard as well, if everyone put, and I said this was a big pot of stress, if everyone put all their stress or problems in the high street or even down here, and we all labelled them, and you had an option to go and choose anything in there, if you saw everyone's problems in the world, you'd probably go back after yours.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I heard that, and again, it was quite humbling. I'm thinking, are my problems really worth the stress? And another thing, my auntie was so gold. She said, would you worry about this on your deathbed? And again, if you're going to worry about it on your deathbed, yes, I'm going to worry about this, whatever it is, then do something about it. If you're not, let it go. Let it go. It's really not worth it. Live your life in joy and happiness and peace. Has anyone heard of the serenity prayer?
Yes.
Serenity prayer?
Give me,
Okay. Grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference.
Yeah, it's a great prayer.
It is. And that just brings it back to here what Dr. Libby was sharing about, and it's quite peaceful, and I think if you remember that as well.
can you read that again?
Absolutely. Grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And that's a beautiful thing, isn't it? The wisdom to know the difference, because by being, oh, look, I've just looked up and it said wisdom begins in wonder. How powerful is that? That's a great aha. Wisdom to know the difference.
Thank you.
And you're just no longer in your head tripping down. So as I mentioned yesterday, when I did the visualization and you were deep breathing and then you were breathing from your heart and expanding out, that's from your heart is probably one of the biggest organs, and it's so powerful. And by being in gratitude and having elevated feelings and feeling love, it really sends chemicals up to your brain by doing that. I think crying is good, a great release. Yeah, for sure. And I think with stress, you always got to come back to the feeling. People just say, I'm so stressed, I'm so busy. Whereas really, what does that mean to you? And look into that feeling, because it's a feeling. People, could be a feeling of sadness or loss. That's the level that you need to look at, rather than here. So start to unpack what those feelings are and what it means to you. Yeah, and really dive deep into that. Yeah, but definitely to work on the feelings, because it could be some trapped emotion. I'm a firm believer of how I was living my life up to the point of that diagnosis was highly stressed. I was, still am to a little bit, but a people pleaser. So I would do everything for everyone else and put myself last. Knowing that and knowing that you have that pattern, and whatever patterns everyone else has, is to be aware of that and really dive deep, with the beautiful questions that we had here from Byron Katie, either this one or this one. How do I treat myself? How do I treat myself when I believe that thought of not being able to please everyone? Well, you're downward spiral on your own self-worth and self-esteem and value. Is it really true? What's the actual facts of the situation? Because my emotion and the other person's emotion would be different, but the facts of the situation, is it true? And can I turn it around? Yeah. Yeah, so thanks for sharing that, because that's very powerful. But isn't it interesting, just by hearing that, and everyone's witnessing that, and we can identify with where you are, as well as our language plays a massive part in our lives. By setting it up, by saying, oh, I'm going back to this, I'm having, and thank you for that example, because I'm sure we've all been in that situation. By going back tomorrow, my life's going to be like this, my house is going to be like this. You're already predetermining, with that, setting that intention, what the house is going to be like. But I think it's in that instance when we've just got to become aware of, when we're running a program, to say, I'm in it again. This is not how it's meant to be, and switch it. Yeah, and it is a great challenge to keep moving past those edges and keep learning and growing and expanding.